Welcome to the Rebel Woman podcast, where we have uncomfortable conversations that are designed to help us grow and evolve and expand our consciousness. I am your host, Charlene Lizette, and I am joined today by two very spectacular, very gifted, very magical celestial beings. So I am going to pass off the mic and allow Vika to introduce herself, and then Renata, and then we'll get started with today's podcast.
Thank you for having me, I am Vika Bradford, and what am I? Among many things, my main focus is karmic astrology and working with the cosmic rhythms in a way that heals past life wounding, repeated woundings, the really nitty gritty hard stuff that we deal with. I kind of uncover that in people's charts and work with the cosmic medicines to really help us step into our power, rewild ourselves, and really realign ourselves to our authentic beings in this world.
Beautiful. It's your turn, Renata.
Thanks for having me.
So, were we supposed to clap for that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So my name is Renata Trofsky, and I am a naturopath, soul astrologer, Reiki master, and a spiritual mentor. And really, I'm that person that delivers that sassy cosmic wisdom that people don't even know that they were looking for. And my whole mission, ideally, is to help people fully show up and break away from the societal conditionings that prevent them from doing so that they can align with their purpose and service the world the way that they were born to.
I love that we're also in alignment with our soul missions.
Hallelujah.
Okay, so I want to start off with a quote today. Today's conversation is going to be really a wide lens on what we're seeing happen and unfold in society, in our collective, in this world right now. I feel like every day we're hit with a new thread of sensationalism that has us at the tip of our toes, or has the collective in fear or in panic or in some state of, I like to call it trauma, right? Because we never have this moment to find peace within ourselves. So I love Plato and I love philosophy, and I'm going to read this quote from Plato for all of you, and we can start from there. We can easily forgive a child who is afraid of the dark. The real tragedy of life is when men are afraid of the light. I'm going to read that one more time without fucking it up. We can easily forgive a child who is afraid of the dark. The real tragedy of life is when men are afraid of the light. And I think when we look at what each of us do individually, we all, in one way or another, through our skills, through our soul mission, focus on being light beings and beacons of light for our community members, for the people that we work with, for the people that we share our content out into the world. But what we're seeing now a lot of is the darkness. And just earlier this week, Vika sent me a DM on Instagram, and she's like, do you think that social media is a master manifestation tool? And I was like, yep. So why don't we talk more about that?
Yeah. So I was sitting there just pondering about this whole world situation. And like you said, Howie, it's just like global tragedy after global tragedy after global tragedy, trauma. Like you said, there isn't a moment to find peace. And the gaslighting and the virtue signaling, and how like one thing is not okay to post about and you are a terrible person for posting about it, like the Freedom Convoy. And yet this other thing that we have no information about except from the mainstream media is we're going to decide exactly how we feel about it. And we're going to get into a rage and we're going to be angry about it when we have no true information. And I was just like, was social media created to be a master manifestation tool? Was this created for this purpose, to stoke hatred, to stoke a heightened feeling, right? It does go in the other way where we see mass awakenings and mass love and like unity, but is it being used to fuel division? That's my question.
100%, like 100%. And I actually have this, I was looking at my phone to pull up this post I made about how we're living in like a zombie apocalypse. Okay, so I want to draw this attention to this post because the ending is very important about what I'm going to say. And I'm sure we're going to dive deeper in this. So I say we're living in a zombie apocalypse, and it's not what you think. Many people have lost the ability or have unfortunately never been able to do the following: critically think, filter through information from various points of views, and exercise discernment. Exercise genuine empathy as opposed to preaching when it's trendy or popular, the famous virtue signaling, to ease your own whatever guilt or shame you got going on with yourself. The third is managing your emotions and triggers instead of misdirecting your anger or projecting onto others. Balancing logic with intuition, trusting yourself and staying rooted in your values and integrity, even when others disagree, shame, or try to gaslight you. And then finally, being curious and listening and having open conversations as opposed to imposing your views, taking what others say or do out of context, or automatically canceling someone. Now, the reason why I mentioned those points is because I don't blame necessarily the people. Okay. And I still struggle with getting triggered and managing my shit because I'm not Jesus Christ here. So I can be honest about that. But what we have to all consider, especially how social media is used as a weapon, is who feeds and fuels this consciousness in them, and how can we be the change to break this like wounding cycle and separatism cycle in humanity. So I absolutely feel like you want to call it a manifestation tool, you want to call it a tool that fuels this division, this fear, this hate. Absolutely. I think it's just another I guess way that they want to use this tool called social media.
I love the they. Who is the they?
Who's the they?
The damn they.
The damn they.
The damn they.
You can't mention names, but who's they? Start to question who is they? Who fuels this?
I think it was the second or third point you made where you said critical thinking, and you nailed it. It's an inability to stop for a moment and take a few steps back and go, what the hell is actually really happening here, right? And I honestly, I truly believe that it has to do with our societal conditioning. If you think about, we're all about the same age, right? And most of my audience is within that like 30 to 40 realm, up to 45. But we grew up in a generation where we were there when the internet began. Prior to the internet, what did we do? We went outside, we played with our friends, we got dirty, we ate worms and dirt and grass, and literally would come home like, what now would be depicted as like, oh my God, you're infested with germs. Back in, they were like, that was the best fucking day ever, right? Like I fell on my ass, I felt, we did all this fun stuff, and we really unintentionally or unconsciously focused on grounding a lot. And as we grew up and we went into our adolescence, then in the 95, 96 era, the internet came about. And all of a sudden, all these interactions that we were having face-to-face with people, this connection that we had with people, with Mother Earth, with, the North Node being in Taurus and needing to connect back to this earthly plane, slowly started to dissimulate and disappear. And I mean, from there, it's just like it ricocheted out, right? Like it was like full speed ahead. Then we had phones. Then, the dial-up didn't happen anymore. Then it was DSL. Is that right? Right? Remember, it was a DSL internet or whatever.
I don't know, but
dial-up.
Yeah, dial-up. But then it was like another kind of internet. And anyways, and now we're here where we are. And I think technology is fantastic. I love tech. I mean, I think it's this beautiful tool that can be used for so much goodness. But therein comes the duality, right? These two polar opposites of, we can use this for good, or we can, or maybe not good or bad, because like that's subjective, but like we can use this for positive frequencies or negative or lower vibrational frequencies that keep us stuck, limited, and looped. And I think that all that to say, this critical thinking disappeared from a lot of the collective because we just had so much information at our fingertips that we didn't have to stop for a minute. You posted, Vika, that you went to the library. Like, how many people go to the library now or a bookstore and like just engulf themselves in there?
It was actually a massive bookstore. It was a used bookstore. Yeah, but it's so true. Like how many people are there absorbing even old information, right? Like that hasn't necessarily, well, who knows what's been changed,
I was like,
but like even just being, we found a book yesterday that was news that wasn't printed in 1998 or news that was censored in 1998. It was just this one book of 1998 news that wasn't censored. And guess what was in there? Everything that's coming up right now. In how many states in the US decided to bypass environmental laws? How many states decided to do censorship or like just weird things that are very connected to what's being revealed right now? All that stuff wasn't allowed to be printed. It's just this book. We're like, what?
Did you buy it?
We didn't, but we just like flipped through it and like the stories were just mind blowing.
Yeah. And I think that goes back to it. Knowledge is power. I always say that. And people who focus on knowledge do what you said, Renata, right? They're able to critically think.
Oh yeah. And that's not really taught in our schools. Like I'm more of that. I was always analyzing and questioning reality. That's just my predisposition, or I don't know, my natural pattern. Right. But even back then I would question things in school, and it would be kind of looked at like, I even remember in religion class when I was in world religions, I was like, wait a tick. So if I was born in India, or if I was born in this geographical location, my whole belief system would change. So I'm now in a Catholic school, and it's not that I don't have a relationship with God and conscience, whatever that is, but I was just like, that's interesting. And I was kicked out of, well, not kicked, but my religious teacher after that, I went from like being, his favorite student to this demon essentially for bringing that up in the Catholic school in world religion, where I'm like, what? I'm not,
how dare you,
discounting my belief, but I'm just saying this is really interesting that we kind of all believe in similar things, but there's this like, and it's based on my where I was born, or what family I was born into, or even land or location. And that really got me thinking about like, what's this thing about religion? Right. So, but that, yeah, like I said, most people we're not taught to critically think in school. We're taught to consume a program.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, even having Charlie, right? Like him being 6, turning 7 in grade 1, watching, I love his teacher. I'm really grateful he has a good teacher, but there's still programs that they have to follow through, right? And you see the indoctrination, is that the right word? Yeah.
Indoctrination.
Yes. Happen at such a young age, right? And if you question anything out of the box which you're supposed to fit in and the route that you're supposed to follow, then you're looked at like a demon, like what you said, Renata. You're literally looked at like, who are you? Why are you questioning this? And how dare you not conform to these societal structures? But that goes back to the critical thinking. Mm-hmm. How are we not asking ourselves, well, why can't we think for ourselves?
Yeah.
Why can't we ask questions?
This reminds me too. Okay. So my husband he was homeschooled his whole life. He was raised, his dad's a preacher or a minister. I don't know what the right word is. I was raised non-religious completely. The sun is just blasting in right now. But I was raised non-religious. He was raised very religious, again, homeschooled. His view of the world was very different than mine. Creationism. I was raised with evolution. Like I was indoctrinated through the school. And when we started dating, like he had all these theories about life that I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, you don't believe in evolution. You don't believe in carbon dating. Like you think, what are you talking about? And even at the beginning of like things with Mr. Donald there, he had some very different views where I was quite brainwashed at the time. I even voted for JT. Like there was many things where I was quite brainwashed in 2014. And through our relationship, like the uncovering of being like, holy shit, like I know nothing. Not saying anything he's saying is right, but we're both at this point where we're like, we don't know anything, right? Like we don't know anything. And the lack of indoctrination he has, yes, he has church indoctrination, which he never fell for. So that's interesting in its own right. But just the two of us sitting here and we're like, what? Nothing's true. Nothing's real. I don't know. Yeah. Yeah. So he helped me critically think.
Yeah, I think it's important. I think people get sometimes, I find people are afraid to just express or just to share to understand reality. Like, why can't we just have conversation without it on? Like I said, if I immediately ask a question, I'm labeled as something automatically because it's been so conditioned through the demon phone, or the demon tube, that constant narrative's pumped out that you're like, well, I don't want to look like a bad person. So if that person's even asking a question, then it's guilt by association. And it's like, I'm not even claiming that I even know the truth, but through conversation, why can't we have conversation to maybe come to the point to what actually is truth?
Yeah.
Where people are too afraid to even say things. And that's why a couple months ago, or not even a month ago, it was like, I think it's a new moon in Aquarius. I'm like, screw this shit. Like, I am so done. I'm pretty outspoken about, my views in a degree, or what I stand for. But I was like, this is disgusting. Like, this is disgusting what's happening right now. And, in the world where people will just see something and then immediately, because it's reinforcing their belief or their worry about looking like a bad person, when it even goes against their own integrity or values, will stand for something they actually fundamentally don't even agree with.
Yeah.
And again, why is that?
What the why is the world ending, right? Like, is it ending or is it beginning? Right? Like, you have these, when you were talking about the zombie apocalypse, a couple of things were coming up in my head and I didn't want to interrupt you. There was a song back in the day by an artist and it goes, I'm a bad singer, so I don't want to sing it, but zombie, like, and she sings it over and over again. And I actually—
The Cranberries, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? You're the singer, right, Vika?
I'm the singer. I'm not going to sing though.
But yeah, and it's true. And when you listen to the lyrics of that song, it's literally talking about how we have lost our ability to even think for ourselves out of fear, out of being like ostracized or criticized or attacked. And so there's this mob mentality that's following that kind of supports this cancel culture, right? Of, you're saying something that doesn't align with everything else. Oh no, then you're canceled. Let's all gang up against you and like hate you. And I think I even mentioned it in one of our chats where I said, when we were going through the election that just got called here in Toronto, or rather in Canada, I had posted my beliefs based off of like my limited knowledge around astrology. I don't consider myself a professional in astrology at all, but more like my intuition and my psychic abilities, because that's how I get a lot of my information. And then I'm like, hey guys, are you seeing this via the astrology? Like, confirm for me, please. Like, is this right? And one thing that I noticed was when I was looking at the different political leaders, I was sharing my videos, or political party leaders. And as soon as I'm not going to say what party it was, but as soon as I mentioned one party whose color is orange, and I was like, this person is only after the clout. Like, they will flip flop whatever way as long as they get clout. They were canceling me. This one person was literally like harassing on TikTok nonstop. And I was like, I can't, like, I have a life. Like, I can't have my phone going bing, 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 because you're like on this tangent about how wrong I am, right? Because it's my opinion and how I don't know how to read astrology and how I don't know this and how uneducated and so it's like this bombarding of judgment, criticism, attacks, and needing to silence others simply because their views and their values don't align with you. And I think that goes back to this duality that we have right now, right? Where I was telling you before we hit record, the tectonic plates, right? The 3D tectonic plate and the 5D tectonic plate, and this in between, let's call it the 4D, right? Where people are like, I want to leave. I know it's not part of my values. I know it's not part of like who I truly am, but I'm scared to go here because I don't want people to judge me. So I'm going to, tether and stay in the 3D, even though it's not in alignment or in my values, right? Like, I have friends or I should say people that I know who were totally against everything that was happening here in Toronto, but they refused to speak up. And I'm like, well, then are you against it? You know, should a mother or a father lose their child because of their medical choices?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. But like I said, people don't have tools, right? So that's why it's so important to bring this up to help them identify, like, yeah, that's me. But then it's like, okay, what tools are you missing? A lot of people are missing self-trust, right? Like, you're feeling your intuition, or something doesn't feel right in your body. And I've experienced this by being in 9 years of medicine and seeing people were being like, I didn't want to do that surgery, I don't want to take this drug, or something doesn't feel right, but they kept saying this, and I kept distrusting what I was feeling, whatever that is. And it's like, it's just the fact that a lot of people don't have self-trust. It's not that they don't know, or they don't have this intuitive feeling. It's that that has been smushed when they were little. Either they were made wronged, society told them, you don't believe that, that's not part of the program. And then it creates inner conflict that they bring into adulthood. So that's where, like, who's listening to this, it's like, how can starting to develop self-trust within yourself, because you're always going to have people that are going to tell you how you're wrong, or this or that. And that's a reflection of your self-doubt.
Yeah. I think also, like, going back to, you know, looking at 3D consciousness versus 5D consciousness. In 5D consciousness, we understand that everything is one and we're all interconnected. And so we don't sit here and judge others, right? I'm not going to judge you for the way you look or for your opinions. I'm not going to pass criticism. I'm not going to, you know, want to ostracize you or segregate you because you think differently, because I know that we're all interconnected, and being unique is what makes us so beautiful and magical. But when it comes to the tools that you can use, I think the biggest one is, you know, along with self-trust, it's creating a solid foundation for yourself of who you are. You know, through my work and through what I'm doing, I notice a lot when I work one-on-one, or even in the courses that I offer, people have lost their sense of self. And it's not about losing or finding. I think they've just forgotten, right? We were born. And so if we believe in spirituality, we know that, you know, our soul comes into earth and then we forget everything that we know. And we're born into these babies that are innocent and incapable of defending themselves, doing anything for themselves. They're completely reliant on their parents. And then as we grow, it's our parents and school, neighbors, family, and so on and so on. And so all those layers evolve, and we become dependent on them when we're little to teach us, to empower us, to instill confidence in us, to give us the freedom to explore, to be. But how many people can you say have confidently had those home environments or those life environments where they've been able to unapologetically connect with who they feel like they are authentically without being judged?
Yeah, not many.
No, it makes me think about, like, when we're speaking about the gaps, right? Like between the 3D and the 5D and that 4D space, if you want to call it that. Maybe it's like an empty space. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's like a void. I think, like, in this world of 3D, there's a lot of programming and the fear propaganda that if you move to a higher frequency, even the ego does this for us. Like, we think it's not safe, right? But even the world programming us to think if we step into a energy that is an ostracized energy, an energy that is the black sheep, right? We're going to be harmed. And I think that comes from so many lives of that, the witch hunts, the how many other, like, things where if you were against spirituality or religion or this or that, you were put away, right? You were either killed, you were harmed, you were tortured, you were locked away, whether that lives in all of us, right? And so when we lean into wanting to move over into a consciousness that feels good, but isn't normal, there is a fear response in us, right? So, like, it is the sensation we have to go through that dark night of the soul to hit that rock bottom so that we can go there, because we're no longer afraid. We're like, what else are you going to do? Come on, universe, like, throw it at me. I've got nothing left. And then we can move over. Then we can step into the next state because there's no more fear. But I think until we get rocked so hard that we're willing to just take that leap, we sit in the fear and we're like, if I move into that state, what if I get thrown in a concentration camp for believing in freedom? What if all my income is taken away because I believe in freedom? right? What if I'm judged by whoever because I believe in a different world? I see a different world. And like we see this with the higher octaves in like in astrology that want to move into that world. The Aquarius energy that wants to progress is like, is it safe? That's why the Aquariuses are always the black sheeps, right? They're always the ones that are out alone, the rebels, right? Because they are the resistance, but being the resistance is not necessarily safe on Earth because we live in duality.
Mm-hmm.
Even when you were talking, Renata, I think I want to circle back to what you were saying, Vika, when you said, you know, if you do something that's not conventional or societally accepted, you're automatically like the black sheep or you're ostracized. You were talking about it, Renata, with what you saw with medicine, right? And medicine's a perfect example. So maybe we can talk about that and touch base on that.
Yeah. So I'm a naturopathic doctor, and you know, through my own health journey, having seizures on my periods, struggling with depression, anxiety, and an eating disorder, and then seeking conventional care back when I was like in my early 20s, and just like sitting there and getting like told what my options were. I was like, I don't like that. This doesn't make sense to me. Like, this only happens on my period. Like, I'm noticing certain patterns, and like this depression, anxiety was evoked from all these different life circumstances happening and unresolved trauma. Like, anyways, so then I was introduced to naturopathic medicine again in a time which was over 10 years ago when it wasn't even popular. It's still like becoming more globally accepted. It just like, it was a knowing, it was a remembering. I was like, this makes so much sense, because like the body does have this ability to heal itself and everything's connected. And in naturopathic medicine or even energy medicine, that's why I love Reiki and acupuncture. It's if I have a migraine, it's not because this local area it has a problem. It could be a hormonal imbalance in the body. It could be something that I have ingested. It could be this stress. It could be toxic exposure. It could be this toxic relationship that I'm in, right? And in medicine, the model is all about separatism. So it's all like, well, that issue or your cancer is just because of this one thing, and nothing else is connected to that. Where that is like, what are you saying right now? It's like if a branch on a tree is dying and suffocating, it's like you wouldn't think like we have to investigate the roots or the foundation or any of that stuff. So naturopathic medicine was able to. And even when I'm in consulting with people, I'm like, yeah, this is going on here, your diet here, your relationship here, the world here, like you're disconnected from your soul. And this is how manifested in this physical expression. And they're like, that makes so much sense. And then we start to address that, and then they become realigned again. How can you tell me that everything isn't intricately connected,
interconnected,
especially the unseen vibrational world.
Yeah.
Right. And and it's like, are me and all my patients just hallucinating when I do the Reiki acupuncture and they're getting results? Are we just, is this it? And then I hate the placebo effect too, because I'm like, maybe it's the conscious intention option.
Yeah.
And
why do you have to discredit it?
Because you can't make money off that.
Yep.
You can't make money off people healing and getting better and feeling empowered. You sure as hell can make a lot of money keeping people in a cycle that's dependent on them just to survive.
Codependency. Right.
So, and then you can branch that out to universal consciousness, that we think that we're just all unique points of perception in the collective consciousness. We're not actually separate. Right. So it's like, what's going on with you and whoever's listening to this? It's like, we're all actually tapped in to that, but it's so hard for people to grasp. But it's like, I had that understanding based on physical health, and they keep fueling this separatism, this versus that, anti versus pro. You know what I mean? It's so in so many levels and in so many sectors, this shit runs deep. And then again, I always ask myself, well, why is that?
Why does there have to be so much duality in everything, right? Good versus bad, black versus white, this versus that. And yeah, no, I mean, it makes sense. I too, through my own health journey, started to question the whys, right? Like, why is this happening? You know, if I'm feeling X, Y, and Z, I have to get to the bottom of it. And that was actually the can of worms. Like, that was the beginning for me, right? I used to suffer from like really bad IBS. Like, what is IBS?
It's just a label when they say we don't know what to do. So you just have, you're constipated or bloated or pooping your pants. And I don't know.
Exactly. We don't know. So it's IBS. Cool. How do I heal? I remember I was sitting in front of the doctor and I'm like, how do I heal this? And he's like, yeah, you can take this medicine. And I'm like, so I have to take medicine for the rest of my life? Yeah. Or like, you can do a diet. And I'm like, okay, what kind of diet? An elimination diet. And I'm like, oh, so what does it look like? Yeah, well, it's a lot of work and just take this medicine. And I'm like, okay, no, I'm not going to be dependent on medicine for the rest of my life. And it was that kind of got me really understanding the intricacies between absolutely everything. I like to focus on the mental, the emotional, the spiritual, and the physical aspects of the self, right? Those are the four. And I love that you do Reiki because when I did my chakra healing certification, I learned about the Merkabah. And I think more people need to learn about that. Like, what is the Merkabah? Right? How does that work? How does it look like on our body, and the meridian points and the focal points and our chakras and the alignment? And what happens if one part, of our body is, like you said, right? If it's a migraine, it's not necessarily happening in the head. It could be something to do with stomach trauma, or something happened to your root chakra, or whatever else that could be manifesting itself in your life, an external relationship, the job that you fucking hate, but you stay at because it pays you minimum wage. And even though minimum wage doesn't help you live life how you want to live, at least it's something. So you got to grab onto something, because how dare you want to start your own business? That's risky. And, all these stories that we tell, right? And so if I go back to this whole Plato quote, the real tragedy of life is when men are afraid of the light. Why do you all think that? Okay, so let's pull that back for a minute. Do you think now, with the social media, with the amount of people that we see awakening, that more people are seeing the light?
Yeah, I think so.
I think yes. I think very much yes. But I also see, and I actually don't even mean but, and I also see how intentionally that light is being attempted to be shifted. So I see both of it, right? There's this mass awakening. And I don't know if you guys have gone down the rabbit hole of Project Looking Glass and all that stuff. The idea that there is this ability for they saw into the future and saw the mass awakening was unable to be stopped. And so I think we're seeing that, and the mass attempts to stop it, right? So they're using things like social media. Okay, they're awakening, like it's like press the button to release the next fear injection, because too many people are seeing through this lie or this intention or this plan. We need to send in the next plan, send in the next fear like injection, right? To take all the energy of the awakening and drop it. And we're even seeing that with people who were like awake around freedom, and now they're like bought into the next fear injection. And you're like, not that that's not happening, but do we know, are we trusting the exact same sources we didn't trust yesterday? So that's kind of how I'm seeing it.
I see it also that they've built this construct in society to get us dependent on the system. So now that you're like, oh, my business on social media, okay, well then slowly it's like you can only say this or that, and then you get in this kerfuffle. And I think it's quite psychologically. I give the credit for how psychologically aware they know. So this shit runs deep. So not only, okay, let's try to bombard the awakening, but let's get them hooked on all these systems that can offer good, but then that's where we can also entrap them to a certain degree. So most definitely new systems will be created. I do feel that way, but I know when there was these other ones being created, I'm aware of still where my limitation lies, where I'm like, well, no, I have my Instagram and my TikTok, and like, I'm not going to just jump on over there yet. And and it's something that I still wrestle with myself, where, majority of people are here. So you want to be awakening them here or helping them reconnect with themselves here. But then you're like, shit, this thing is really it really hooks me in this really fucked up way. So I do think they're very smart about that. So even those trying to bombard the awakening in the sense that I don't know if they had the idea that it was going to go the way they wanted, but they've also, it's a sense of entrapment at the same time.
I feel that oh man, I feel that every day where I'm like, I want to leave. And then I'm like, but my people are here. And oh man, yeah, it is a sense of entrapment. That's deep.
Yeah. Mhm.
It's like that meme that you posted, Renata, where you're like, fuck him, I'm out of here, and it's Kermit the
Kermit
Frog
meme, yeah.
biking away.
And then like,
shit, now I
fuck,
gotta come back because I signed
I'm the
up
one
for this.
spreading the light, damn it. Yeah.
Shit.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, I say to people, I'm having a simultaneous existential crisis in various intensities every day as I'm simultaneously living out my mission. And I think we think, oh, that person's taking a stand and they're not, you know, worried, or not that worried, but it's like they don't have struggles. And I just want the audience to know that we don't have it all figured out. We're all just like, this seems a little weird. This is a consistently weird thing. And I've consistently lived this experience, and so has others. And I don't think we're all hallucinating, or maybe we are, you know? And I think people need to understand that all we're trying to do is have a conversation about things that are blatantly illogical, because they're, like I said, why is that being put out there?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they weaponize people's trauma.
Mm-hmm.
They weaponize people's race.
Yeah.
They weaponize people's culture. They
Mhm.
weaponize what people stand for. And we've all been pulled into that game.
Yeah.
100%.
But then you see it when maybe you're not as involved with a certain, I don't know, what words you used, fear something?
Like a fear injection.
Fear injection. And you're like, okay, well, I don't have a lot of fear with that thing, but I see how people who maybe have more trauma or pain or association with that, it really engulfs you in.
Yeah.
And that's where we're trying to do. And I want to, I feel is to be like, guys, why, who, they, is this constantly who benefits from that?
Yes.
I always tell my students who, what, when, where, and why.
Yeah.
Every single moment. And I think that's what consciousness is, right? Consciousness is continuously asking ourselves, what is happening? How will this have a ripple effect into this world? Where is it happening? To who is it happening? Right? Like implementing all those questions into this. And I really love the fact, Renata, that you're saying, you know, to provide tools to people that are listening to this, right? Because it can very much feel like the fucking world is ending. Right. And literally it can literally feel like there is this frequency right now of, well, shit, we better stock up. We better, you know, have a lot of land. And I'm not saying don't do it, right? But I'm just saying, like, you be prepared, but also don't be in panic, right? You know, where there's this frequency of, right, like of constant, like, oh my God, I have to go do this. Oh my God, I have to go do this, da 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 da. But at the same time, if you have tools, and if you are rooted and grounded in yourself, and if you truly understand who you are, your values, your integrity, what you stand for, then all this noise that happens is just that. It's fucking noise. Right? It doesn't penetrate you the same way. And you're right. Like, I'm human. There are times when I'm like in pure panic mode. I have a 6-year-old, a 7-year-old, right? And my immediate reaction is protect my child, come near my child, and like, right? Like, you will get the fist. But I also need to realize, like, he's 6, he's 7, he needs normalcy.
Yeah.
Right. I'm not one of those parents that's like, slap on 7 masks, hand sanitizer, all this, because I don't want to project that trauma onto him, right?
No.
So what are some tools that you could all say could help people in seeing the light?
I can go first if you guys
Yeah.
want. Okay. So there's many, right? First is your physical well-being, right? And that could be stemmed from so many different things. But if your body is constantly stressed or you're not unwell, it's maybe you have to address things on a physical plane first, right? Which still can be emotional, spiritual tools. Secondly is building that self-trust. So learning to build self-trust. And there's many tools to do that. So like you can just explore like how to build self-trust, work with someone, work with a mentor, working with a coach. I think Reiki is a very empowering tool to helping you get really clear with your own alignment versus getting, you know, hooked on the next thing, helping you stay centered and actually helping you connect to your sense of source and self. Plus cleaning off all the energetic shit that you carry on, not even knowing it, you know? The next is working with your astrology. I'm sure you're going to piggyback off of that, to understanding your unique pattern and blueprint and what you're here to do. So you can stay bloody focused instead of feeling like you need to go over here, you need to say this, or you need to do what this is, because that's I'm telling you, working with my personal astrology, my personal mission has kept me centered as fuck during this time, as opposed to being distracted or feeling like I'm a bad person when I know deep in my heart, I am not. So when you know your personal pattern, how to work with your personal pattern using astrology, and then also I'm big on transits, understanding what is coming in your personal space so you can work on what's coming up for you personally, because we want to change the world. Change yourself, fix yourself, not fix yourself, align yourself. Instead of trying to put out fires out there, which many people just don't understand that simple concept. Because when you are coming from a place of being rooted and aligned and centered, you telling me that's not going to affect the rest of the world? It sure as hell is. Instead of running with your head cut off, chicken like your head cut off, trying to fix something overseas when you can't even fix what's happening in your own home.
Yeah. Be the change you wish to see in the world. Isn't that the quote?
It is. And it's a very simple thing that many people do not, it's very underrated. That's what I have to say. And
hallelujah.
Speak your truth, or else you're gonna get a tooth infection like I did. So when you withhold your shit, it's gonna affect you personally. Oh, and I forgot this last one. I'm so sorry. Fear is a misunderstood ally.
Yeah.
So the things that you're terrified about, they're actually indications of where you need to go. Except we have a very messed up relationship around it because of what we've been raised in society. But fear, I think, is a very misunderstood ally and a tool where you can be like, I'm really afraid of that. Perhaps I should go explore and lean in there. Because how many times have you taken that risk or stepped outside your comfort zone, or faced your fear, or integrated your whatever the hell you did? You're like, damn, I wish I did that sooner.
Yeah. Right? Like right here, literally, it took me, oh my God. I knew that I needed to start a YouTube channel in 2017, and I was terrified, like absolutely fucking petrified of doing that. And it took 2 years for me to finally be like, okay, I can do this, and like put out content that was in a line too. Because, back to what you're saying, astrology is this beautiful tool.
Yeah.
It's a secret map that's not so secret, that shows us exactly everything about us and how to channel our gifts and where to lean in and focus on, so that we can align with our soul purpose and show up authentically into this world, right? Without the fear. I think just recently, Jessie from Atma Things, right, Renata?
Yeah, she's a good friend.
She does this belly. She's starting this belly class, and I've been wanting to take it, but I have a lot of trauma in my solar plexus and my sacral plexus, or in my solar plexus and my sacral chakra. So I am very nervous about doing things that have to do around the midsection. And I said to her, I keep leaning into wanting to do this, but then I pull back out because I don't want people to see me belly dancing, and I don't want the judgment, and I don't want this and that, that starts going in your head, right? The voices. And she's like, just come and be a wallflower, and, maybe like lean into it and like surrender. And as soon as I stopped texting with her and I was like, yeah, send me the email, I'm going to sign up. As soon as I did that, this was last night, I sat on my couch and hysterically cried, because I realized where my trauma originated from. And my trauma is that I never got to have the birth. And I will still get emotional about this. And this is and you both know this in your practice, whenever we still have feelings, like emotions attached to it, and we cry or we get worked up, that's the trauma trying to heal itself. And my muscle on my arm is shaking right now. I don't think you can see it, but like it's literally pulsating. But I started crying because I'm like, my trauma is that I never had the birth, that I was robbed of the birth that I wanted to have with my son. And so I've been carrying that this whole time, right? And, to wrap up with what Renata was saying, leaning into that fear, that's where these miracles happen, where these aha moments happen, where we take that leap of faith and we jump into that unknown. And it's that like moment, right, before you jump, that is the hardest. But as soon as you jump, fuck, man, it's exhilarating.
Yeah, it is. It's so liberating.
Yeah, and liberating. I love that word. All right, Vika, what do you think?
Okay. Just amen to all of this. Hallelujah.
Praise
Okay.
the Lord.
Praise the freaking Lord. I have so many thoughts. Yeah. Oh my gosh. So my first thought, and this is like so interconnected, of course, is like trusting the flow and the rhythm of our universe, right? Like, yes, I am human. We are all human here. I get caught in the fear frequencies. I am some days like, oh shit, I'm going to a concentration camp. Like, oh shit, I better fucking run. Like, oh shit. Like, right. I get stuck and I'm like, babe, we better stock the hell up. Like cyber attacks are happening. I get into it. There's a lot of Scorpio in here. Like I get into it. Right. But then I settle back down and I'm like, everything is working as it should.
Yeah.
Even though I can't see that, even though we can't see that, even though we're in the chaos, right? Like thinking of the goddess Kali, the planet Pluto, like who it brings up the shit, right? But it is bringing us to we're in the chrysalis, we're in the rebirth, we're in the process, and just trusting. And I say this to my clients all the time when we're doing Pluto work. I'm like, man, you are on a river and I need you to surrender. I need you to stop trying to swim. I need you to just trust that this energy, this frequency, this timeline is flowing you into the places you need to go. Yeah, you might hit a rock, like it might suck, but then you learn from that hit, you learn from that process, right? So first is like trusting that we're going somewhere good, even though we are in chaos, and like checking in. Yeah, your brain's in a fear frequency. Are you safe right now? Are you good? Are you in your home? Do you have food in your cupboards? Is the grocery store still full? Like, do you have money in your bank? Are you okay? Yeah. Take a freaking moment. And then do that again the next day and the next day. We're still good, right? Like I kind of have to come and check into my life all the time. I'm like, I'm still okay. Things are still okay right now. So one is that. Second is harder. And it's been my work since 2020 when both my Oma and Opa passed. Trusting and allowing and letting go of the gripping of that life is impermanent, but we are not. Right? Like, yes, we are all going to pass out of this physical vessel, this like little suit we're wearing. Yes, we are going to, I don't know when, we don't know when, but we're going to end. This body it's expiring at some point, right? But that doesn't mean we end, right? We get to go into the ether, into the space between, and then we get to reincarnate again. We get to do all these things. We don't end, right? And we know that. I know we know that when we really tap in, right? We've just been going through this stuff, and there's the impermanence is fearful because of the physical experience of Earth. But like really at the end of the day, if the worst happened, you would go into bliss state. Yeah, there's fear around leaving this body and your dog and your child and your husband and your partner and your friends. Yes, of course, and your parents, but you get to go into a bliss state where that's gone. That fear is gone. That frequency is gone. So that is definitely my work. It's not easy, but trusting in life is not permanent. We are not permanent. So can you just live? Can you be in love? Can you be in a state of joy? Can you be in all these Taurus North Node energies of pleasure? Can you enjoy food? Can you enjoy the experience right the heck now, instead of getting lost in what's going to happen in a week or a month or a year or 10 years? For God's sakes, we're all focused on like 10 years from now. Can we just be in the trust of like, yes, the light always wins. There might be some darkness, there might be some shit, but like, we're going to be okay, whether it's in this physical body or in the beyond. Then I think about heart resonance and embodiment work, right? Like the tools of when we're not in our bodies, when we're not healing our bodies, when we're not moving our bodies, we are decaying, like physically, spiritually, emotionally, all these things, right? We're collapsing inward. And my awakening was also a health journey of just my body stopping working and doctors being like, here's a medication. And my body, I think this is my Virgo nature, being like, do not put that in your body. Stop. Everything that was toxic, my body was like, I am rejecting it. And this heart resonance and embodiment work, that when we heal ourselves, we actually heal the people around us. We put out this frequency, right? We inspire them without even having to say anything, do anything. The three of us know that the people around us automatically are like, I want that.
Mm-hmm.
Look how good she feels. Look how healthy she's radiating. What the hell
Mm-hmm.
are you doing? Like, right. And they come into our field and they're like, I want to heal like this. I want to do this. And so we create the heart resonance, which they say in heart resonance, it's like you connect or you affect 10 people, which affects 10,000 people, which affects 10 million. It's something like that. I don't know the exact numbers, right? But we cause a ripple effect. And I think the more we do our embodiment work, and coming back to astrology is how I do my embodiment work, knowing my signatures, right? Knowing I have so much Leo, I need to soothe that, right? Like my harder points or my karmic points are in Leo, and having to settle her down or fluff her up. But then tapping into the Scorpio energy in my life and knowing, okay, detoxification is going to be big for me. Purification is going to be big for me. There's going to be a lot of stuff going on in my reproductive organs. Yep. Virgo. Okay. Stomach issues all my life. Okay, cool. And then we can tap into these and be like, goodness gracious, I have a lot of Mercury in me. I better heal my damn nervous system. Or goodness gracious, I have so much Uranus in me. I better heal my damn nervous system. Right. And then the transits, like, okay, we have a huge Uranus signature going on this year. And for the last year or so, we better be taking care of our nervous systems right now because we're in overload. We have a huge Pluto thing going on right now. We better be detoxing. We better be cleansing because the shit that's in our body is in our energetic field. So these are my layers.
So I just want to touch base on the last two things you just said because you spoke and I was like, dun, dun, dun. Like I have these like big moments in my brain where I'm like, oh my God. Uranus transits?
Uranus and Pluto.
And Pluto. What did you say for Uranus?
Nervous
okay.
system.
So yeah, nervous system. Nervous system.
Fight or flight.
Fight or flight. And this cosmic grid. Right. And Uranus is the cosmic grid that we're all connected to. It's like picturing all our brains, like having this like light wave going ping ponging, or like you see those maps of the earth and it's like all these like planes flying around. That's all our brains with Uranus, like this conscious connection. And our nervous systems get so overloaded with everyone's frequencies, everyone's shit flowing into everyone else's shit.
So I'm literally taking brain support right now. Like I took it because I was like, Jesus Christ. Like,
I'm on lion's mane every single day now because like, there's just too freaking much.
So notice how what we're being subjected to externally out has a direct correlation to what you're saying that we as a collective should be focusing on ourselves, right? The detoxification of Pluto, the nervous system with Uranus, like literally these 2 points right now are heightened for everybody, right? Because what kind of detoxification have people had the last couple of years?
So media, it's all
detox the media, not just physical.
But
detox
information.
Right? Like we haven't had access to the gym. The gym's just opened up, so we haven't had space to detoxify. We've been on our phones so much. That's what we need.
Which is also Uranus, right? Technology.
Yeah. You know, I mean, here in Canada, it gets cold. You can't run outside. You can't do it unless you're like snowboarding. And some places you're not even allowed to snowboard, depending on your like, you know, medical situation or whatever. So there's all these restrictions that are happening to the collective, while at the same time, the universe and the astrology is saying, this is where we need to be focusing on. This is where we need to be taking care of ourselves a little bit more, right?
Right, which is that Saturn Uranus square, right? Yeah, that the restrictions of Saturn being like, I'm going to take this away for a reason. And Uranus being like, oh, we need to heal our nervous systems or work with our nervous systems. There's going to be a lot of buzzing. And the two coming together of like, I'm taking away your support of your nervous system. But again, Daddy Saturn does that to align us, right? To bring and heighten our focus on things we need to heal.
Yeah,
allegedly. I'm just being cheeky. Yeah.
Well, we can hope, right? We can hope. We can look at it from a light aspect, anyways, right?
Oh, but they both have their lows, right? Like all three of those energies, Saturn, Pluto, and Uranus, they got their lows, and their lows are low.
Yeah, and it's that push and pull between the old and the new, right?
Oh yeah.
That holding on to the old. I look at that Saturn Uranus square as holding on to the old and trying to break to the new, but there's simultaneously there's two news.
I know.
Right? And then there's people fighting for the old too, but then there's like this new, you know what I'm talking about? And then there's us who are like, no, let's create this new. So it's such an interesting energy right now to see. And that's why I think people, if they understand the collective astrology and then also working with their own, because essentially what's happening up there affects our consciousness. So it's not like the planets are screwing with your life. The planets bring a certain energy that then can affect collective consciousness, but individual consciousness. And again, you know, you call it, Vika, higher octaves, lower octaves. I call it the conscious expression, the shadow expression, same shit, different story. Where it's like, how are you responding to that energy? Because the energy is not going to ruin your life. Because a lot of people are like, oh my God, well, this is happening. There's nothing I can do. And I hate that shit, that disempowering spirituality or astrology thing that people have. It's like, no. This is the energy. How do you want to engage on the spectrum of that energy?
Yeah.
Taking responsibility still versus being that victim. I see it a lot in the astrology spiritual field. Like, oh my God, this is happening. And this is why I'm, you know, and it's like, that's maybe why that's coming up for you, or you're feeling this emotion or this trauma or this pain or whatever. But at the end of the day, it's still coming back and taking responsibility for, oh, what's coming up for me now? Not being victim to the energy.
Yeah. And I think remembering also, like, we all intentionally incarnated at this moment. So when you did, you were like, I know. But we all looked at our birth chart and we were like, yeah, I'm coming in with this shit. And I'm coming in with this trauma and this trauma and this trauma. And on top of all the trauma I chose, I intentionally came in with this transit. Like, I intentionally chose Pluto to be going through all of the Capricorn shit and then all of the Aquarius shit that like this generation chose, right? And like previous to that, the Sagittarius shit. Like we all were like, yeah, I'm gonna do this, right? So like releasing that victimhood and being like, I chose this, so why did I choose it? Why did I choose this activation, right? Why the hell did I choose to have Pluto activating my Chiron right now? Okay, I'm tapping into healing my mother wound, healing my family wound, healing so much of that within myself. And instead of being like, oh, damn you, Pluto, I'm like, hallelujah, Pluto, let's bring that shit to the surface and let's move forward. I'm ready. Yeah.
And you can still be like, damn you, Pluto, because I'll be like, damn you. And then I'll be like, oh, I know I can appreciate why this is happening. So I don't want to say to people, you can't be human or normalize and embrace your humanness. At the same time, though, it's still taking that responsibility back. And we have to normalize there's going to be discomfort.
Yes.
There's going to be endings. There's going to maybe potentially be manifestation of a health condition. For you to work through that shit. There could be a loss of a job because the path wants to move you to a new one, and there's that liminal space of uncertainty. And again, we've been so programmed to fear any discomfort. Where the diamond doesn't come from not being under pressure. Anyways, I digress.
No, not at all.
I love this conversation. I think that if I can add to tools, you know, for me, and I share this from my own personal experience, it was only when I remembered who I was, when I loved myself unapologetically and authentically, and learned to forgive myself and release a lot of that guilt that I had, because, you know, victim, right? I've been a victim my whole life. And there are some things like, you know, to turn around and say that sometimes we're not victim to things when we're little and we don't have control over things. Yeah, absolutely. We're fucking victims to things. Absolutely. However, having said that, as we mature and as we grow, we can take control of our situation and decide the direction in which we're going to take, right? I could have chosen to allow all my trauma to turn me into a drug addict, alcoholic, right? Or you always have choice. And I think that comes with the consciousness. And so for me, I think the biggest tool that I can say for people to utilize, you know, especially when the fear of like, is the world ending? Is it all coming down? Is it all like, you know, falling apart, and all the stuff, like this constant like fear that we're in right now, that we're seeing a lot of on social media, the way to the light is finding the light within the self. So getting really clear on who you are as a person. What are your values? What's important to you? What do you love? What brings you joy? You know, not what your mom or your dad or your sister, your brother, your uncle, whatever they wanted it to be for you, but truly what it is inside of you that fuels you, that light, that passion. It's in that understanding and owning it too, right? Owning it. I mean, I don't know how the two of you grew up, but I grew up constantly suppressing who I was and being embarrassed for who I was and being afraid of who I was because I was so preoccupied and worried about other people's judgments, how other people were going to perceive me, how other people were going to talk about me. And you know what? It still fucking happened. I was still bullied all growing up. So I lived in the fear and I got bullied at the same time. Like it happened simultaneously, right? And so I think like just owning oneself and really dating yourself, like getting to know yourself is part of that getting rooted and creating that solid foundation that helps you to align with your highest self, so that when, you know, we have these human experiences, like Renata was saying, right, or Vika, like when we have these moments where we're like in sheer panic, it's like, okay, hold on, damn minute. Okay, yeah, there's this noise that's happening. Yeah, maybe my tummy's bothering. Yeah, maybe I have acne. Yeah, maybe this is happening or that. However, I can control this. It's my body. I'm in the driver's seat. So what am I going to do right now to shift or adjust or get support or get help or go to Reiki or go to a psychologist or go get somebody to read my natal chart? What can I do within my control so I'm not a victim to my circumstances, but rather I'm empowered, in control, and I am aligning with myself from a very confident, very rooted and grounded way. So yeah. Do you all want anything else? Do you want to wrap up with anything?
The only last thing I want to say is because I know a lot of people will be like, oh, easy for you to say, or I can't do that. I can't do this, or I'm not this, or I have this. I already know. I'm like feeling that. And my question I always say is asking the question, not, well, I can't do that, is how can I make this happen? So that's what I will leave everyone with.
I love that. I think that's perfect. Yeah. And taking back your power, like take back your power, find what that means. And I don't say that's easy. All three of us have been through hell, have been through dark experiences, have lost everything, have lost things we thought we'd never lose, have been through the shit of it. Like anyone listening, if you're having that moment of like, easy for you to say, we've all been through hell. Definitely. It may look like, yeah, we're sitting here and we've got our shit together, but it took us a damn long time to get here. For me, this is 10 years, I think going on 11 years. I don't know about you guys. And just remembering that it can be a long journey. It's a lifelong journey. And you're going to find your power in different avenues, different things. And maybe it's astrology, maybe it's tarot, maybe it's not anything to do with the spiritual realm, but find something that makes you feel empowered and then claim it and own it and find discipline and cry and smash things if you need to and go through the shit of it, lose your mind if you need to, but come back home to your body, come back home to yourself. And remember that every single damn person around you is going through their own personal hells and their own personal losses and their waves and their broken hearts. And can we just find some damn kindness and compassion and love for the fact that we are all interconnected? So if you're feeling pain, likely that every single person you meet is in their own pain process.
I love that. I think empathy, compassion, humility, and understanding, right? Those are all key words to kind of allow to what's the word I'm looking for? Marinate in the brain as you are dealing with people. And as you go on with your day, I want to leave you with something that my psychologist taught me. For those of you that are watching this, chances are you follow me, so you know a little bit about my story, but PTSD plays a big role in my life. And I'm always looking for tools on how I can help the PTSD, because it doesn't go away. So there's two things that I'm going to share with you to wrap this up. And one is that this is a journey. There is no point in your life where you're going to fully heal, where you're going to stop feeling pain, where things are just magically going to go away and it's all rainbows and sunshines and lollipops, unless you die and you go to the other side, right? Like that's the time. So embracing that it's part of the journey, that there will be days that'll be beautiful. And then there will be days where we're going to have to choose to see the beauty in the days, in the obstacles, in the challenges, in the difficulties. But that it is all part of this journey in your life. There is no end destination. It is forever ongoing until you choose to leave this earthly plane. And then the other thing that I'll leave you with is, in very layman's terms, I want to break down the brain for you all. This is super like layman's terms here, because even though I love psychology, I'm not a professional psychologist. I didn't go to school, don't have a degree. So the brain is divided into three sections. In the back of the brain, we have the flight or fight response. Animals like snakes and alligators have this fight or flight. So they fight or they run. That's it. Those are their two choices. Humans have that as well. In the middle of the brain, we have the emotions. In there, we have the amygdala and we have the hippocampus as well. So we share the emotional and the fight or flight with animals like apes and monkeys and so on and so forth. Dogs as well. We see dogs have emotions as well. What makes us as a species so fascinating is that we have the prefrontal cortex, and that is what helps us to think logically and critically. And it's right here, right at the front, in the whole front section. That doesn't fully develop and mature until about 26 years old. So if you're dealing with somebody who's 10, 12, 14, remembering that they're primarily using their emotional and their fight or flight. And then if you're dealing with somebody who has a lot of trauma or who grew up in a lot of trauma, and many of us have our own traumas, our prefrontal cortex has developed based off of our trauma. So our reactions and the way that we choose to show up or receive information, or the way that we process things, comes from those three sections of the brain, and then our whole life from inception to the moment in which you experience it. So yeah, that's what I'm going to wrap up with. Thank you so much, Vika and Renata, for joining me today. I'm so grateful. I hope you all liked this. It's kind of weird doing this stuff because I'm not used to having a podcast, but whatever. Hopefully you'll like the video or the podcast. And thank you so much for being a part of this. And if people want to get a hold of you, Renata, how do they do that?
I'm sure you'll attach it in your show notes or whatever, but Align with Renata, my Instagram, is the best place to find me. And I have links to everything, my website, my offerings, TikTok, Telegram, all that stuff. But that's the best place. That's my main hub.
Awesome. Thank you. And Vika?
Same thing. Instagram's probably the easiest way. Just Vika Bradford, and everything's on there as well. My website is Vika Bradford, and make it super simple for everyone. And everything, just like with Renata, is all just there waiting for you.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much, ladies. I really appreciate it. And thank you everyone for tuning in.